Chosen one. This is not random. The tension you feel around toxic bosses, the way certain authority figures instantly dislike you, the silent resistance, the strange hostility, the sudden micromanaging. It is not because you are difficult. It is because your spirit refuses to bow. There is something about your presence that unsettles corrupted authority. You walk into rooms without trying to compete, yet insecure leaders immediately feel exposed. You speak calmly, yet manipulators feel challenged. You do your work honestly, yet those who thrive on control feel threatened. Why? Because light exposes what darkness wants to hide. In 1 Samuel 18, when David simply existed near Saul, the Bible says Saul became afraid of David. David did nothing wrong. He served faithfully. He played music to soothe Saul's torment. He fought battles loyally. But Saul knew something. The Lord was with David. That's the part they sense about you. Chosen one, your energy is not attitude, it's alignment. And toxic leaders cannot dominate what heaven backs. Have you noticed? Healthy leaders respect you. They may challenge you, but they value you. It's only the insecure, the controlling, the manipulative ones who react strangely to you. They feel you do not belong under them, and they are right. Pause for a moment. If this message is already confirming what you've lived through, I want you to comment. I refuse to shrink. Let it be known. Let the algorithm push this to other chosen ones who think they're crazy for walking away from dysfunction. And if this message resonates deeply, consider supporting this channel with a super thanks. It helps push truth like this further, only if you feel led. Now listen carefully. You cannot work under toxic leadership long-term because your spirit rejects oppression. You were not wired for survival mode. You were not designed to dim yourself to protect someone else's ego. Most people adapt to toxic systems. They shrink. They comply. They learn the politics. They laugh at fake jokes. They pretend not to see injustice. But your body reacts. Your sleep gets disturbed. Your creativity shuts down. Your soul feels suffocated. That is not weakness. That is spiritual sensitivity. Ecclesiastes 3 says there is a time for every season. And sometimes the reason you cannot stay in certain work environments is not because you lack endurance. It is because your season under that authority is over. Toxic bosses operate from fear. Chosen ones operate from calling. And fear always recognizes calling before calling recognizes itself. That is why you feel resistance. You were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to influence. Chosen one. Here is the deeper truth. Toxic bosses are not reacting to your performance. They are reacting to your presence. There is a difference. You can do your job quietly. You can follow instructions. You can even outperform everyone else without trying to compete. And still, something about you unsettles them. Why? Because insecure authority is hypersensitive to authenticity. When a leader operates from fear, ego, or manipulation, they depend on control to maintain power. They need employees who seek approval. They feel safe around people who second-guess themselves. They are comfortable with those who constantly ask, "Am I doing okay?" But you do not carry that energy. You move with quiet confidence. Even when you doubt yourself, there is still a steadiness in you. You don't beg for validation. You don't chase attention. You don't flatter for favor. And that is threatening. In Judges 6, when the angel called Gideon a mighty warrior, Gideon did not feel mighty. He felt small. Yet heaven saw something in him that the Midianites could not control forever. Chosen one, even when you feel unsure, your spirit still carries authority. Toxic leaders sense potential. They can read it. They see your independence. They notice how other co-workers respect you. They observe how people listen when you speak. And instead of mentoring you, they compete with you. That is not leadership. That is insecurity. Here is something profound. True leaders want strong people under them. Insecure leaders want dependent people under them. You were not created to be dependent on broken authority. You ask thoughtful questions. You notice inefficiencies. You see when something is unjust. And sometimes you don't even speak it out loud, but your silence says enough. Your discernment irritates them because toxic systems survive on silence and compliance. Think about Daniel in Babylon. He served with excellence. The Bible says an excellent spirit was found in him, yet the other officials sought to trap him, not because he failed, not because he rebelled, but because he could not be corrupted. That is you. Your integrity is the problem in environments built on compromise. Your emotional intelligence is uncomfortable for those who manipulate. Your calm strength exposes their chaos. And instead of self-reflecting, toxic bosses project. They micromanage you. They question your tone. They suddenly have concerns about your attitude. They shift goalposts. They become cold without explanation. It is spiritual. Light does not attack darkness. It simply reveals it. And when something is revealed, it reacts. Chosen one, stop internalizing what was never yours to carry. You were not too much. You were not rebellious. You were not difficult. You were incompatible with dysfunction. Chosen one. Let's go deeper. Have you noticed that your reaction to toxic bosses is not just emotional, it's physical? You feel drained before the day even starts. Your chest tightens when you see their name pop up. Your creativity disappears in their presence. You feel exhausted after simple conversations. That is not coincidence. Your nervous system is responding to what your spirit already discerned. When you are aligned with truth, your body becomes sensitive to manipulation. When you carry integrity, your system reacts to dishonesty. And when you are spiritually awake, your energy refuses to normalize dysfunction. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Most people conform to toxic work environments. They adapt to gossip. They tolerate control. They learn how to survive in tension. Over time, their nervous system numbs itself, but you never fully adjust. That's why you feel restless. You were not designed to live in prolonged misalignment. There's a psychological truth here. When a person operates in environments that violate their core values, the body enters a low-level fight-or-flight state. Cortisol rises. Sleep quality drops. Focus declines, even immunity weakens. Now combine that with spiritual discernment. Chosen ones often carry heightened perception. You read tone shifts. You notice subtle disrespect. You sense hidden agendas before others do. That awareness keeps your system alert. And if the environment stays unhealthy long enough, your body will force you out. Sudden burnout, unexpected job changes, doors closing abruptly. A deep inner no you cannot ignore. It feels inconvenient, but it is protection. Think about Elijah in 1 Kings 19. After intense spiritual battle, he became physically exhausted and emotionally overwhelmed. God did not rebuke him. God let him rest, fed him, strengthened him. Why? Because the body matters. Your physical reaction to toxic leadership is not weakness. It is alignment trying to preserve itself. Toxic bosses often operate through subtle intimidation, not always yelling. Sometimes it's passive aggression, withholding praise, shifting expectations, emotional unpredictability. That unpredictability is what keeps your nervous system on edge. But here's the part that changes everything. Your body does not react that way around healthy authority. Around secure leaders, you feel calm, productive, creative, even stretched in growth but not threatened. That contrast reveals truth. The issue was never that you can't handle authority. The issue is your spirit rejects corrupted authority. Jesus himself challenged oppressive religious leaders, not because he hated structure, but because he embodied higher authority. Chosen one, you are not rebellious. You are responsive to truth. And when your body starts shutting down in certain environments, it is often heaven signaling, this is not your covering. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed something strange? In toxic workplaces, you are often singled out. Not the laziest employee, not the most careless one, not even the most inexperienced. You become the subtle target, the extra scrutiny, the unexpected criticism, the performance reviews that feel personal, the strange tension that no one else seems to receive at the same level. That is not random. Toxic authority does not attack weakness first. It attacks strength. Insecure leaders are not threatened by incompetence. Incompetence makes them look superior. They are threatened by potential. They are threatened by people who can think independently. They are threatened by those who do not emotionally depend on them for identity. And you carry independent strength. Look at the story of Joseph in Genesis 37. Joseph did not try to overthrow anyone. He simply carried a dream. Yet his brothers hated him before he ever rose to power. Why? Because they sensed favor on his life. Favor irritates insecure hearts. Chosen one, your competence highlights their inadequacy. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your ability to see solutions exposes their poor leadership. Even when you stay quiet, your presence speaks. There is a spiritual dynamic at play here. When someone operates from ego, they need control to feel safe. But when someone else walks into the room grounded, steady and self-aware, it destabilizes that illusion of control. They cannot dominate you emotionally, and that frustrates them. Have you noticed? They try to provoke you. They test your patience. They question your tone. They assign impossible deadlines. They subtly undermine you in meetings. It is a strategy. If they can make you react emotionally, they can label you difficult. If they can make you doubt yourself, they regain psychological control. But here is the truth. They are trying to reduce what they cannot control. Nehemiah faced this. When he began rebuilding Jerusalem's walls, opposition rose immediately, not after completion, at the start. Why? Because progress threatens stagnation. You represent progress. You represent movement. You represent growth. And toxic systems are built to maintain comfort, not growth. So they attempt to isolate you. Maybe co-workers start distancing themselves. Maybe gossip circulates. Maybe you feel misunderstood. But understand this clearly. When you are targeted for integrity, that is confirmation, not condemnation. Jesus himself said in John 15:18, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." Opposition does not mean you are wrong. Sometimes it means you are aligned. Chosen one, you were never meant to shrink so insecure leadership could feel taller. You were never meant to dilute your competence so someone else could shine artificially. Chosen one. This is where it becomes clear. The reason toxic bosses struggle with you is not just because you are strong. It is because you are built for leadership. There is a difference between being rebellious and being called to lead. Rebellion rejects all authority. Leadership recognizes authority but refuses corruption. And you do not resist structure, you resist dysfunction. That is a leadership trait. Look at Moses in Exodus 3 and 4. Before he ever stood before Pharaoh, there was already leadership inside him. Even as a shepherd in the wilderness, he protected what was entrusted to him. He guided, he carried responsibility, he solved problems. Leadership is not a title, it is a wiring. Chosen ones often have this internal compass. You naturally think about improvement. You see long-term vision. You notice inefficiencies and immediately start calculating better solutions. You care about fairness. You instinctively protect weaker team members. That is not employee thinking. That is builder thinking. Now place that wiring under a toxic boss who leads through intimidation. It creates friction, because strong leaders do not thrive under fear-based leadership. They suffocate under it. Healthy leaders can mentor other strong leaders, but insecure leaders feel replaced before they are replaced. They sense your capability and imagine future competition. So instead of developing you, they attempt to contain you. You feel it. You feel the ceiling. You feel the limitation. You feel that unspoken message. Stay small. But your spirit does not agree. In Matthew 25, the parable of the talents shows something important. The servant who buried his talent out of fear was rebuked. Growth is expected. Expansion is expected. Multiplication is expected. You were not given capacity to hide it under oppressive management. That constant frustration you feel is not arrogance. It is misplacement. David served Saul faithfully, yes. But David was anointed king long before he sat on the throne. There was a season of serving under flawed authority, but that season was preparation, not permanent positioning. And this is crucial. Not every toxic boss is meant to be defeated. Some are meant to reveal you. They expose your threshold. They awaken your courage. They push you to finally realize you were not created to live under small-minded control. You are uncomfortable because your spirit senses a higher ceiling. And here is something practical. Chosen ones often perform best in environments where they have autonomy, where their input matters, where innovation is welcomed, where integrity is rewarded. When you lack that, your performance drops. Not because you lack ability, but because your environment does not match your wiring. A fish cannot climb a tree. That does not make it incapable. It makes the setting wrong. You are not difficult to manage. You are difficult to limit. Chosen one. Here is the part most people do not want to hear. Not every toxic boss is immediately removed. Sometimes they are allowed, not to break you, but to build you. There is a difference between being trapped and being trained. David did not become king overnight. He was anointed in 1 Samuel 16, but he still served under Saul, a jealous and unstable leader. Saul threw spears at him, tried to sabotage him, publicly dishonored him. Yet David did not let Saul corrupt his character. That season sharpened him. It taught him restraint. It taught him emotional discipline. It taught him how to lead differently. Sometimes toxic leadership shows you exactly what kind of leader you refuse to become. And that clarity is priceless. Now listen carefully. Endurance is not the same as acceptance. There are seasons where you are learning how to manage pressure without reacting, how to maintain integrity under scrutiny, how to build skill quietly, how to observe power dynamics without participating in them. That is training ground energy. But here is the key. Training seasons produce growth. Trapped seasons produce decay. How do you know the difference? In a training season, even though it is hard, you are still developing. Your skills improve. Your discernment sharpens. Doors begin to hint at future movement. You feel stretched, but not destroyed. In a trapped season, your health declines. Your peace disappears completely. Your growth stagnates. There is no vision beyond survival. Joseph endured Potiphar's house and prison, but even in prison, the Bible says, the Lord was with Joseph and gave him favor. He was still rising internally, even while externally restricted. That is a sign of training. But when Pharaoh's season arrived, Joseph moved. Chosen one, toxic leadership is sometimes a mirror. It reveals your triggers. It reveals your emotional maturity level. It reveals whether you lead from ego or wisdom. You are not just learning what leadership looks like. You are learning what it should never look like. And that matters, because one day someone will work under you. And the way you handle power will either heal or harm them. So do not waste the season. Extract the lesson. Study their mistakes. Notice how fear distorts decision-making. Watch how insecurity creates control tactics. Observe how ego isolates leaders. Then commit within yourself. When my time comes, I will lead differently. But also hear this clearly. Training seasons have expiration dates. God does not refine you forever under oppression. Chosen one. This part is crucial. There comes a moment when the tension shifts. You are no longer just uncomfortable. You are being repositioned. When a season under toxic authority is ending, certain signs begin to appear. And if you are spiritually aware, you will feel it before you fully understand it. First sign, their control stops working on you. The things that once intimidated you no longer carry weight. Their tone does not shake you. Their criticism does not destabilize you. Their manipulation becomes obvious. You are no longer emotionally hooked. That is growth. In Exodus, there came a point when Pharaoh's grip on Israel began to weaken. The same tactics that once kept people bound started losing power. When fear stops working, freedom is near. Second sign, clarity replaces confusion. In earlier stages, you may have questioned yourself constantly. Am I the problem? Am I overreacting? Maybe I should just adjust. But when the season shifts, your discernment becomes sharp. You see patterns clearly. You stop gaslighting yourself. You recognize dysfunction without absorbing it. Clarity is a release signal. Third sign, new ideas start pulling at you. You begin thinking about business ideas, new career paths, different cities, skill upgrades, certifications, side projects. You feel creative again, but not for that environment. That is not distraction. That is transition energy. Isaiah 43:19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" The new thing often begins internally before it manifests externally. Fourth sign, opportunities begin whispering. A random conversation leads to a connection. A job listing appears that strangely fits you. A mentor enters your life. You feel nudged to update your resume. You feel peace when thinking about leaving. Peace is confirmation. When God closes one door, he does not leave you in a hallway forever. He prepares the next space. But here is the important part. Do not leave emotionally. Leave strategically. David did not attack Saul when he had the chance. Twice he spared him. He left when it was time, but he left with character intact. Your exit should not be driven by rage. It should be driven by readiness. If you leave too early without preparation, you may repeat the cycle elsewhere. If you stay too long out of fear, you delay your expansion. So prepare quietly. Strengthen your skills. Build savings if possible. Expand your network. Pray for timing. Watch for alignment. And here is something powerful. When your season is ending, toxic bosses often escalate. They sense distance. They feel your detachment. They tighten control. They may even attempt to provoke a reaction. Do not react. Escalation is often confirmation. The enemy intensifies when it senses it is losing access. Chosen one, your departure will not just be physical, it will be energetic. Chosen one. This is the part they never tell you. When you finally leave toxic authority, something shifts immediately. It is not just a new job. It is a release. You wake up lighter. Your thoughts feel clearer. Your creativity slowly returns. Your body begins to relax in ways you did not realize it needed. That constant background tension disappears, and suddenly you realize how much energy you were spending just surviving. Proverbs 11:14 says, "Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety." The wrong leadership drains you. The right leadership multiplies you. Many chosen ones experience what feels like acceleration after departure, not because they changed overnight, but because resistance was removed. Think about Israel leaving Egypt. They did not suddenly become different people. They were always strong. They were always capable, but oppression limited their expression. When Pharaoh's grip ended, movement began. You may notice something similar. Ideas you suppressed begin resurfacing. Confidence that was buried begins rebuilding. Opportunities you once doubted now feel attainable. That is not coincidence. When you are no longer operating under intimidation, your nervous system stabilizes. When your nervous system stabilizes, your decision-making improves. When your decision-making improves, momentum builds. This is practical and spiritual. Some chosen ones leave toxic jobs and within months experience higher income, health improvement, better leadership alignment, business breakthroughs, clearer direction. It is not magic. It is alignment. Psalm 1 says that the righteous person is like a tree planted by streams of water, yielding fruit in season. The key word is planted. You cannot bear fruit in poisoned soil. Sometimes the only thing blocking your growth was the environment. Now listen carefully. There may also be a detox period. After leaving, you might still flinch at emails. You might over-prepare out of habit. You might struggle to trust healthy authority at first. That is normal. Healing takes intention. But here is the powerful truth. Once you experience leadership that respects you, your standards permanently rise. You will never again confuse intimidation with authority. You will never again tolerate chaos disguised as management. Toxic bosses often convince you that no better environment exists, that you are too sensitive, that every workplace is the same. That is false. There are leaders who build people. There are environments where your input is valued. There are structures that honor excellence without ego. And many chosen ones eventually realize something deeper. They do not just thrive under healthy leadership, they become it. The frustration you endured becomes your framework. The injustice you witnessed becomes your blueprint for fairness. Leaving was not escape, it was activation. Chosen one. Here is the deeper layer. This pattern with toxic bosses. It is not random. And it is not isolated. It follows you because you carry reformer energy. Everywhere you go, unhealthy systems react. Not because you attack them, not because you start drama, but because your presence highlights what is broken. Some people are built to maintain systems. Others are built to reform them. You are the second type. In the Bible, every reformer faced resistance from corrupted authority. Moses disrupted Pharaoh's system. Nehemiah disrupted complacency in Jerusalem. Jesus disrupted religious control structures. None of them were chaotic. None of them were reckless. But their alignment with truth created friction. That is what happens with you. You ask questions others are afraid to ask. You notice inefficiencies others ignore. You quietly refuse unethical shortcuts. You see potential for better structure. That alone destabilizes toxic leadership, because unhealthy systems depend on people who do not question. Now here is the part you need to understand clearly. Your energy is not aggressive. It is principled. And principled people always challenge corrupted environments without even trying. Have you noticed that sometimes you do nothing at all? And yet tension still rises. That is because reformer energy exposes cracks. When you operate with integrity, it forces comparison. When you stay calm under pressure, it highlights instability in others. When you remain consistent, It exposes inconsistency around you. Light does not argue with darkness. It reveals it. In Ephesians 5:13 it says, "But everything exposed by the light becomes visible." That exposure creates discomfort in those who rely on manipulation. And here is why this pattern may repeat. Until you fully accept your leadership assignment, you may continue placing yourself under systems that cannot contain you. You will outgrow them. You will question them. You will feel confined. And eventually, you will leave. This is not about ego. It is about design. Some chosen ones are not meant to sit in rigid hierarchies long term. You are builders, innovators, vision carriers. You think in terms of expansion, not maintenance. That is why autonomy feels natural to you. This does not mean you reject structure. It means you thrive in structure that allows growth and input. But if you keep stepping into environments where insecurity runs the top, the friction will return. Because reformer energy does not blend with fear-based leadership. Here is the shift. Instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" ask, "What am I being prepared to build?" Reformers are rarely comfortable in stagnant spaces. They are catalysts, and catalysts disrupt by existing. Chosen one. Now we bring this together. You cannot work under toxic bosses long-term because your energy does not submit to corruption. Your spirit rejects manipulation. Your nervous system reacts to control. Your mind seeks growth. Your wiring leans toward leadership. That is not a flaw. That is identity. But here is the final truth. Identity without strategy creates chaos. Calling without wisdom creates burnout. You are not meant to keep storming out of environments impulsively. You are meant to graduate from them intentionally. Proverbs 4:7 says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom." Wisdom means timing. Wisdom means preparation. Wisdom means understanding that sometimes God removes you suddenly, and sometimes he expects you to prepare quietly before stepping out. If you recognize this pattern in your life, here is what you do next. First, stop internalizing rejection from insecure leadership. That chapter is closed. You understand now that the friction was incompatibility, not incompetence. Second, evaluate your skills. Leadership requires more than vision. It requires competence. What certifications, training, or experience would strengthen your next move? Identify at least one concrete upgrade and commit to it within the next 30 days. Third, build quietly. Whether it is a side business, networking, investing, or skill development, start constructing your future before announcing your departure. Joseph interpreted dreams in prison before he stood in Pharaoh's palace. Preparation precedes promotion. Fourth, guard your character. Do not let bitterness contaminate your spirit. Toxic bosses can teach you what not to become, but they should not define you. Bitterness clouds discernment. Hebrews 12:15 warns about roots of bitterness growing. That root can sabotage the very leadership you are being prepared for. Fifth, pray for alignment, not escape. There is a difference. Escape is emotional. Alignment is intentional. If you are meant to build something, begin mapping it. If you are meant to transition into healthier leadership, begin positioning yourself for it. If entrepreneurship pulls at you, start researching, planning, testing. Do not leap blindly. Move with precision. Chosen one, here is the powerful reality. You repel toxic bosses because your frequency does not match theirs, but you will attract environments that align with who you are becoming. Light always finds its proper placement. Psalm 75:6-7 says, "Promotion does not come from the east or the west, but from God. He brings one down and exalts another." Your elevation will not require manipulation. It will require readiness. So instead of asking, "Why can't I fit under toxic leadership?" start declaring, "I am being prepared for higher leadership." This is not about quitting every difficult situation. It is about recognizing when a ceiling has become permanent and your growth demands expansion. You are not here to shrink. You are not here to survive dysfunction. You are not here to bow to insecurity. You are here to build. And the moment you stop questioning your wiring and start honoring it with strategy, everything shifts. Chosen one, your energy does not repel authority. It repels corruption. And that is confirmation of who you truly are.